The Red Sox snapped their 5-game losing streak after a victory on Monday night against the Cleveland Guardians. Maybe it was a little bit of help from the City Connect jerseys. We'll talk about that in this episode of the Locked On Red Sox podcast.
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into the Locked On Red Sox podcast, and thank you so much for making Locked On Red Sox your first listen of every single day. I'm your host, Massachusetts Pirates team insider, Jake Ignaszewski, and we're back on this podcast, but talking a little bit more positively about this current Red Sox team. As I mentioned in the open, they're currently coming off of a 5-game losing streak, and now gearing up and just played their first game against the Cleveland Guardians. Luckily, getting off of some of those AL East matchups. We know how that has not worked out so well for the Red Sox during this first half of the regular season, and now a little bit into the second half. And sort of what Lauren and I talked about in last episode, this next week or two is so important for the Red Sox's direction for the rest of the 2022 season. You know, Lauren and I talked a little bit about how we both think that they might need to sell, sort of currently where this team is with the injuries, with how they've played thus far, and also with the amount of holes that they currently have. But they really need to find a way to play over 500 baseball and find ways to get these wins over this next week or so to fuel some confidence into this front office, so then Chaim Bloom doesn't go out there and, trade JD Martinez, potentially Xander Bogaerts, Christian Vasquez, Nathan Eovaldi. But, as I mentioned, going to be a little bit more of a positive episode in this one because we're talking about a victory for the first time in around a week or so. And we saw the Red Sox obviously end right before the All-Star break, not in the best way against the New York Yankees, but luckily, start this Cleveland Guardians series, they get the win 3-1 off the help of a great pitching performance from Nick Pivetta. We saw him go 5 2/3, allowing 7 hits, only 1 earned run, walking 3 batters and striking out 6. But, Pivetta is coming off of one of his down stretches. We've seen him really ever since he came over to the Red Sox have some of these great stretches where he really only allows like 2 hits or so, and really does an effective job. We saw him at the start of April have an 8 or so ERA and not pitch effectively whatsoever, have massive control issues. And then right when May started, saw him throw a complete game. And then right after that, he was throwing 2-hit sort of shutouts or only allowing 1 run or so and striking out 7 or 8. But, we saw him struggle in his last outing against the Yankees, allowed 7 earned runs, and then the same thing the time before when the Red Sox were at home. He allowed 6 earned runs against the Yankees. So AL East teams just not great for Nick Pivetta. He's really struggled with them. When facing opponents outside of the division, he has a 2.33 ERA. And then the AL East, 7.57. So says it right there in the numbers. Luckily, the Cleveland Guardians were outside of the division, and his curveball looked nasty throughout the night, looked a lot more confident with his pitches, and was able to get out of multiple different jams. We saw in the second inning, it was first and second, struck out 2 batters seamlessly to get out of the jam. Then the fourth, it was second and third, and he was able to force the batter to ground it right back to him to end the inning. Great way for Nick Pivetta to really find a way to get out of those jams that could have made this game a lot closer, with it obviously being a very low scoring game throughout the entire thing. And if the Guardians were able to come up clutch in either of those situations, we could be potentially talking about an extra innings game or even a Red Sox loss, because, this offense has been unfortunately very inconsistent throughout this entire tough stretch. Obviously, it's due to the injuries. Yolmer Sanchez, Jeter Downs being out there Rob Ref Snyder, Jaron Duran with how he's hitting right now, it's not going to help you whatsoever. Mixed with Franchi Cordero, Bobby Dalbec, and it's just sort of like what Lauren and I talked about, kind of like a spring training lineup. That's what happens when 14 injuries really start to pile up for a team. We're going to be talking about a little bit more of these injury updates in our second segment of the Locked On Red Sox podcast, but looking a little bit more into how these runs actually came on the board for the Red Sox and also the Guardians as well. We saw Yolmer Sanchez line a single into left field to drive in Jackie Bradley Jr. Then Jose Ramirez ended up scoring off of a soft grounder to tie the game 1-1. And then Alex Verdugo doubled off the monster super clutch hit to drive in Ref Snyder to make it 2-1 to break the tie. And then Christian Vasquez, a guy who has come up clutch throughout this entire season. He's just really exceeded all expectations, which potentially lean the Red Sox organization thinking about trading the longest tenured current player on the roster during the trade deadline. He is going into his final free agency year, but talking more on the positive end of singling to center and scores Verdugo to make it 3-1. So really great overall win for this Red Sox team. Hopefully this is a start of a winning streak, a rebound, we could call it. Can't get too excited. One game, hopefully they can, continue gaining confidence, gaining back that swagger. And I hope that this homestand will really help them a lot and really fuel them when they really need it most. Especially with the atmosphere at Fenway. The players have talked about it time and time again. It fuels them. It gives them energy. It makes them want to play harder. Alex Verdugo talks about it all the time ever since he's been with the Red Sox, just how the crowd is able to help the team ultimately not always win, but, obviously want to play a lot harder. And sometimes the results go their way. Sometimes they don't. But at the same time, the crowd will always help. The home field advantage will always help. So hopefully the Sox can continue this success going into this rest of this Guardian series and the rest of this homestand. They're going to be home for the next 10 days. So this is going to be a very important time for the Red Sox, not only 2022, but also 2023, because, a lot of these decisions that we could be talking about on this podcast in the next week or so could really determine what the team is going to look like in 2023 and what we could be talking about for the rest of the season. That's why I keep on bringing it up. I'm not trying to be annoying talking about the possibilities of guys getting traded, but in all reality, August 2nd is coming up in 1 week. And so, something that I really want to do, and I know Lauren really wants to do with this podcast, is, try and educate people who might not know about the Red Sox or watch them all the time or every single day like I do. So, if you're a regular watcher of the Red Sox, you're probably like, Jake, why are you reminding me of this? But that's why I'm reminding you of it. But great overall win for the Red Sox. Really nice to see Nick Pivetta back on the mound looking like himself. That's going to be huge for the Red Sox down the stretch once we start to see these crucial pitchers and guys who were really key pieces in the rotation start to trickle back. Some of these injuries starting to heal up, luckily, and the Red Sox, that will hopefully help them have a lot more success in August. As we've seen, July's been really tough, and I've been trying to keep the positivity with this episode, but another interesting stat that I saw from Danny Vietti today is the Red Sox have as many months with a winning record as the Kansas City Royals. That's 1. And the Royals have the second fewest wins in the American League. Still trying to stay positive. The Red Sox are over 500. Got to be grateful for something. The offense is starting to pick it up. Nick Pivetta looked a lot better. Let's talk about the bullpen. Let's talk about some more positives. John Schreiber continuing this great streak that we've seen him on throughout this season. 1 1/3, only allowing 1 hit, striking out 2. Just great performance of him overall. And then Garrett Whitlock coming out of the bullpen, pitching 2 innings, striking out 2 batters of no-hit baseball. This is where he was destined to be throughout this season. Who knows? Maybe the Red Sox will try Whitlock again in the rotation, but I love him in this bullpen role. Just shut the door, right when he comes in, it's over. And hopefully the Sox can start to really build up these wins and like I mentioned, build up their confidence a little bit more. So then we can see them in October. So we can see them fighting for that trophy and ultimately that World Series ring that we're all hoping that they have at the end of the season. But, speaking about rings and fine jewelry, I just want to take a second to talk to you about BlueNile.com, which is the number one place to find all fine jewelry that you're either looking for your special someone or just for a special life moment. Whether it's a birthday, whether it's an early Christmas present, whatever you're looking for, BlueNile.com is the perfect place to find everything. And they also have these great resources and online tools to help you do exactly that. You can choose the diamond shape, size, and clarity and setting style as well. So their bench jewelers also try and handcraft each piece of jewelry to fit your kind, especially if you're looking for an engagement ring. They will make each and every single ring one of a kind for your special moment. So then your girlfriend or fiance to be will be very excited. And they also have great resources as well as the jewelry experts are available and at hand 24/7, available via phone or chat to help you find a memorable gift at every budget. So make your moment sparkle with jewelry from BlueNile.com. And going on now is Blue Nile's anniversary sale. So save up to 40% on classic fine jewelry pieces and 25% on engagement ring settings. Plus, every order is insured, shipped free, and arrives in discreet packaging so that it won't give away what's inside. So shop stress-free and find your forever piece. Go to BlueNile.com today. So as I mentioned earlier in the episode, I'm going to be talking about more positive things, injury updates. So Michael Wacha threw a live BP today and faced hitters for the first time after getting injured early June. And he said that he was happy with his progress and feels like it's a step in the right direction. So he'll probably do that one more time this next week. And then hopefully the Red Sox will schedule him for a rehab assignment. So, we could potentially see Michael Wacha the start of August or second week of August. Who knows? But I think he's just been a great piece for the Red Sox. I think, honestly, if he was not injured at the moment, we could see the Red Sox try and trading him. But with him injured right now, obviously his value decreases a little bit. But Rich Hill's another guy who could potentially get traded as well. Both guys are on one-year contracts, but Rich Hill is starting on his rehab assignment in Worcester on Wednesday. So, we could potentially see Rich Hill by the end of next week. And then Trevor Story also took batting practice today. Stories like Wacha does not have a timeable return, but, you got to stay positive with these things. As I mentioned, Red Sox have 14 injuries. So as these guys are starting to trickle back, it's going to feel like we're actually watching a major league team. It's not these Woo Sox guys filling in or just a spring training look-alike offense that, where you don't feel confident watching the Red Sox, which we have not felt that way, over the past week and a half or so. So it would be nice to start feeling that way again. We can have a little bit more confidence going into tomorrow. Josh Winkowski is going to be on the bump for the Sox. He's a guy who's coming back from the injury list, ended up being put on there after testing positive for COVID-19. He's somebody who, started off his most recent stint with the Red Sox very well, was throwing very productive innings, was looking like a guy who could potentially fit a long reliever role for the rest of the season and potentially next season as well, too. But struggled a little bit in his last two starts. We saw against the Yankees on July 7th, allowed 6 earned runs over 5 innings, ended up walking 5 batters as well. Obviously, control not there during that game. Ended up striking out 2 batters. In his most recent start against the Tampa Bay Rays, ended up allowing 4 hits. Did end up pitching 6 innings, which is very intriguing. We saw him do that as well against the Chicago Cubs. So it's nice to get some innings out of a guy like Josh Winkowski, especially when the Red Sox bullpen isn't as reliable as we would like it to be. He ended up allowing 3 earned runs over 4 hits, walking 2 batters, and then striking out 5 against the Tampa Bay Rays. So that was his last start. Hopefully we can see a much better Josh Winkowski, a guy like we saw against the Chicago Cubs. Only allowed 1 earned run over 6 hits, striking out 6. Even if he allows 2 earned runs, I just would like to see a lot more productive Josh Winkowski at the moment, especially with how thin this offense is right now. We haven't seen them score more than 3 or 4 runs it seems like in the last like 4 to 5 games. So they really need to pick it up. And the pitching is going to have to be a big factor, like we saw tonight, to be able to get the Red Sox these very close wins, because the Cleveland Guardians aren't a bad team whatsoever, especially with the expectations that they started with at the start of the season. They also have a great farm system as well, so they're in a really good position right now. A lot of these young guys, they're the youngest team in the entire league, are really helping them find ways to get these wins. So the Red Sox need to make sure that they're on their game. Not only offense, but the pitching is really finding ways to be able to progress to wins and not make big mistakes. Like we've seen over the last few games by the Red Sox, which is made them have these embarrassing and really tough losses. So hopefully we can continue this positivity throughout this week, but not only throughout this week, but during the trade deadline as well. Lauren and I are going to do our absolute best to help you stay as updated as possible about the Red Sox. Also keep you up as knowledgeable with different guests coming throughout the weeks. We really want to do our best to give the best trade deadline coverage that we can, with the possible, franchise changing moves that the Red Sox could be making. So, we could bring on some past guests, maybe some new guests as well, but we want to get as many different opinions on this show as possible. Some people who you like listening to or could learn something from. So we're always trying to do that and help really liven up this content that we're providing for you Monday through Friday. And, if this is your first time listening or watching, make sure to subscribe on YouTube, whatever audio platform that you're listening to. But as we're continuing to update you about what's going on with the team, if you ever want to invest or try and get some cards of, the new guys that are coming up for the Red Sox, or maybe some guys that the Red Sox could potentially trade for, Sports Card Investor app is the #1 spot to get that. It's completely free, and you can easily browse over 630,000 cards from every single sport, and there's hundreds more added each and every single day. And I'm somebody who has collected cards throughout my life, and it's pretty incredible how much has grown over the last year or so, especially with the values. And so, especially some of these cards that you could be getting on this app, whether it's with the Red Sox or any other team or any other sport, some of these could get to some really cool value that you'd be able to flip, make some money off of. And, that's always nice when you're trying to pay some bills, or if you're just trying to get a great card to add to your collection. Sports Card Investor app is the #1 place to get that. Whether you're looking for a Rafael Devers rookie card or even some most recent rookie cards, maybe some Michael Harris III, potentially, all these different great prospects that we're seeing as well. Make sure to go and download the Sports Card Investor app today. It's available for free in the Google Play or Apple App Store, or go to sportscardinvestораpp.com/locked on today. But going into our last and final segment of the Locked On Red Sox podcast, I just wanted to update you on a small little trade that the Red Sox made. They acquired Abraham Almonte from the Brewers in exchange for cash this afternoon. He's been assigned to Worcester, so not going to make any major impact on the Major League roster. Almonte is also trying to earn a big league opportunity for what will be his 10th consecutive season. He broke into the majors in 2013 with the Mariners and has really bounced around the league as a depth outfielder for the last few years. And he's never played more than 82 games in any major league season. And he's suited up for the Mariners, Padres, Indians, Royals, Diamondbacks, and Braves at the major league level. And so far this season, the 33-year-old has had an excellent season with Milwaukee's top affiliate. He's been hitting .293 with 11 home runs and has had a great walk percentage as well of 11.7% through 48 games. But we saw last season as well with Atlanta, he hit .216 over 175 plate appearances. So it'll be interesting to see how Almonte could potentially be used, to replace some injuries, or we could see him later on in the season. It'll be interesting to see how he really is able to play in Worcester. I'm curious to see him. I'm somebody who's going to be going in the next week or so. So hopefully I can see him there. Definitely going to do my best to update you guys on this podcast about how he's looking. But I'm also curious how the Red Sox could potentially use him. He has some center field experience earlier in his career, but he's mainly exclusively worked in corner outfield and designated hitter this year. So he could potentially fill the right field role if the Red Sox trade Jackie Bradley Jr. Who knows if we could see Jarren Duran in that right field role. Mainly see him in left field, but we obviously have seen Alex Verdugo man that left field position throughout this season and a little bit during the end of last season. But be interesting how everything works out with the Red Sox. In these next few days, we could potentially see some trades before the August 2nd trade deadline. But we're going to be updating you about everything on the Locked On Red Sox podcast. And we thank you guys so much for each and every single day making Locked On Red Sox your first listen. And to make your second listen, Locked On MLB Prospects. MLB expert Paul Francis Sullivan brings you humor, passion, and his unique perspective on every team and the biggest stories around the league. So follow the #1 daily wide podcast, Locked On MLB, on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast. But also make sure to follow Locked On Red Sox on Twitter. It's LO_Red Sox, as well as myself. It's at Jake Iggy, and also my co-host Lauren. It's at La 3 Laws, Lauren with 4 R's. But as always, we greatly appreciate everybody tuning in to the Locked On Red Sox podcast, and hopefully we can continue to provide some positive news about our favorite team, the Boston Red Sox. But we'll end this episode as we always end it. Let's go Sox. Peace.